Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I would very much like to share with you some thoughts that I have about a film that can be found in this Criterion Collection release from 2020, which is this box set called Essential Fellini. The film in question can be found on disc 13 of such release, and the name of the film is And the Ship Sails On. This is a film that the Criterion Collection materials of the set Essential Fellini describe as being from 1983, and the name of the film is in Italian, and please once again pardon me for my poor pronunciation, E la nave va, or in English, And the Ship Sails On. This is of course directed by Federico Fellini, and the screenplay is credited to Federico Fellini and Tonino Guerra, and the cinematography is by Giuseppe Rotuno, and the production design Dante Ferretti. And it has a wonderful cast led by the great Freddie Jones as the character of Orlando, and the ship sails on. This is focusing on a particular voyage, a ship voyage taking place in the summer of 1914, so in the early part of the 20th century. And the purpose of such voyage, and the reason why the passengers are so gathered on such voyage, is to essentially travel to a specific island, because a world-famous opera singer, Edmea Tatua, has passed away. She has died, and her last wishes was to have her ashes be scattered out to sea at the island on which she was born. And so the voyage is traveling to such island, and along the way we as viewers of the film are taking part in this Fellini-esque journey within a journey. Namely, we have the ship journey, and within the ship's decks and rooms we have particular journeys of the various characters that we meet along the way. And it is a wonderful, beautiful assembly of characters that belong in the world of the Fellini-esque. This is And the Ship Sails On. So the basic premise is the gathering of these particular characters, and they are gathering, as I say, to honor the memory of the deceased famous opera singer Edmea Tatua. And because of that, the passengers are more or less involved in the music world, the art world, the world of opera. And so we have people involved in opera performances, opera divas, opera singers, and also people involved in the theater and performance and other expressions of the arts. And these passengers are depicted as being from wealthy or privileged classes. And so we see various situations that oftentimes relate to their privileged class situation. From there, we have a whole variety of characters in a variety of situations. I think both ranging from the comic and humorous to also potentially quite dark and sinister in some places. And all throughout, we have the character of the journalist, played who's named Orlando, and is played by the legend that is Freddie Jones. And this character, Freddie Jones's character, serves as the through line, if you will. He is more or less part of the scenes. He is the observer, he is the witness, and he is also the guide, not just the guide for the film, but the guide for us, the viewers, because he oftentimes will turn to the camera and speak to us directly to give us information about what is going on, who is who, and what is what. And so he serves as a narrator, a guide, and a person who is leading us through this journey that is the film And the Ship Sails On. And I think based on that type of premise, we can see that the film is structured in a way that is very similar to past Fellini films. We have this episodic nature to the plot structure and a whole range of characters. And so we have the ability to go from episode to episode, or scenario to scenario, or from character situation to character situation. And the film therefore does not necessarily follow a strict plot progression, but rather it feels like a tapestry, a tableau, an atmosphere that is being captured. And we have various moments that are stretched out temporally and to heighten the drama and the humor and the Fellini-esque quality. And indeed, there are many Fellini-esque qualities in the way that the people are presented. We have very interesting faces and interesting traits of physical appearance. We also have situations involving animals and magic and superstition and mystery and the ethereal quality that is also blended with a sense of drama and also a sense of humor. And there is a rhinoceros. And so there is always something of the unexpected, and that has the ability, to delight and create wonder and awe. It also sustains a sense of mystery. It also leads to some very interesting and very serious, potentially serious treatments of certain plot and theme concerns by Fellini. And this is relying on the fact that we have essentially a gathering of passengers that are of the upper classes or the wealthier privileged classes. And so as the events of the film unfold and we get a situation involving a group of what are essentially refugees that need to essentially take shelter on the ship during this time. Again, we're on the cusp of the First World War. And so when this kind of situation emerges, then we see some potentially quite disturbing elements of class divide and of economic divide that emerge. And so there is a sense of the pettiness that comes out. There's also a sense of the negativity that can arise due to this kind of class divide that is at the focus, in particular, in primary components of the film. We have seen in past Fellini films situations where Fellini does not necessarily shy away from focusing on characters that aren't wholly sympathetic. I think one of the most famous examples would be a film like, say, La Strada and the character of Zampano. And so he does focus on characters that might not necessarily seem to be wholly sympathetic. However, also, like with past films, Fellini always uses his camera to try to, as I say, capture the essence of the humanity of everyone, anyone and everyone who is involved in the Fellini production. And I think this film, And the Ship Sails On, is no exception, because even though we get these moments or possibilities of really unsympathetic portrayals of these passengers that we are witnessing and we are sharing our time with, there are still moments of a sort of utopian unity that is taking place. Granted, there might be details and nuances of artistic rivalry and slight pettiness among particular characters based on the plots that are unraveling vis-a-vis their own situations. But overall, there are ultimately also moments of real unity and joining together in a sense of utopian a sort of a utopian universality. And this is due to the way that art is expressed. I mean, another thing about this film, and I think Fellini is trying to address, is the real unifying power that is art. And there are some really excellent scenes here about how the power of opera, or the power of dance, or the power of art in general can seem to bridge the divide between classes and really bring people together in a way that is so, I think, life-affirming and warm and positive. And so I think this is the way that Fellini is using his cinema in order to try to identify some kind of universality and humanity among all the characters that emerge here in the film And the Ship Sails On. And also we have, I think, in a very forthright and confident way, that use by Fellini of the art of artifice. And so we see very much the construction of sets and set designs. The sun looks beautiful, the sun looks fake. And indeed, yes, this is paraphrasing a very famous line from the film. And indeed, that is, I think, part of the point. The point is to have artificial-looking sets, artificial-looking backgrounds, things that we know are in the studio, Cinecittà, and the sky, and the boats in the distance, and the sun and the moon, and the settings and the windows, and the other aspects of the decor and environment. So this is very much artifice, and this is very much the application of cinematic artifice. But and also, speaking of the artifice, we also get the way that the camera turns on itself and becomes further obvious that we're dealing with a sense of artifice by virtue of the fact that we oftentimes are aware or become aware of the fact that this is indeed a film. We get, as I say, our main character of Orlando speaking to us directly. It's often referred to as breaking the fourth wall. In other words, a character talking directly to the audience. And there are some other very surprising ways that the film engages in a sense of self-reflexivity, thus calling further attention to the fact that what we're seeing is a constructed film, a cinematic work of art. But that is something that is always part of the Fellini experience, as we've seen in past films, because this is something that he employs, the idea of using fantasy and magic and the fictional world, the world of the fantastic, in order to try to achieve some kind of capturing of an essential truth. And I think that is the core of what's going on in terms of the application of the Fellini-esque cinema here in this film, And the Ship Sails On. It's a beautiful example of this, my friends. And it is even in that vein, it is a further examination of this kind of avenue of Fellini cinema where we see a line that is between fiction and reality. That line is blurred. And we've seen this type of blurring of the lines in films like, say, Roma, or even 8½, or films like The Clowns, or Orchestra Rehearsal, or in something that we might see later in Intervista. And so we have this idea of calling attention to oneself and blurring the line between what is real and what is not real, even in a film that is constructed in this way of story and episodes, such as And the Ship Sails On. And speaking of cinema, we also have these great homages to the craft of cinema itself. I think specific references are made to silent cinema and the links to the early 20th century. We also have beautiful applications of music. Here we have Fellini in a classical music mode, opera mode. It's very befitting the story and the characters. Again, this is the world of opera singers and musicians and artists. And so we have the beautifully applied soundtrack, I think, echoing that in a very parallel, poetic manner. And I think last but not least, we have this sense of nostalgia and also of treatment of history. We also know from Fellini's past films that he is also interested in the examination of history. And here we have an examination of a historical past, again, the early part of the 20th century. And so we have this kind of examination, cinematic examination, subject of the story being this history or historic past, which is, of course, very distant from us. And it's something that we, as viewers now, cannot live in, because now is now and then is then. And but at the same time, I think the artifice of the art that is Fellini cinema is being applied in this way to again give a sense of the artificial, but also give something that perhaps through the application of the artificial, something that rings true in the context of this examination of this historically based story. So I think there is a lot here that's going on that is very much in keeping with Fellini's cinema that we have seen thus far. And so this makes for a marvelous example of the Fellini cinema into the 1980s. It's very beautiful, it's very touching, it's very funny. This is the film And the Ship Sails On. And the Blu-ray, which is part of the Essential Fellini set, is presenting the film, and it's purporting to be based on the new 4K restoration of the film, and it looks and sounds so fabulous. I have to bring up the great early Criterion DVD release at Spine 50 of the film And the Ship Sails On, and this was from the late 1990s. And so this was around the time that Criterion was still beginning to make or to release these DVD releases. And it was great, and it was a historic item in the context, therefore, of Criterion DVD history. And so I relied on this so much. But now we have this new Blu-ray presentation, which looks absolutely fantastic. So kudos to this great DVD release from the Criterion early days. And now we have another release by Criterion, this time the 4K restoration. So it's wonderful to see this. And in the early DVD, we did not have any special features, but now we have the this Blu-ray. And while the special features are not voluminous, there is a 51-minute documentary which is called Fellini Racconta, Diary of a Film. And this is from 1983, and it's about the film And the Ship Sails On, and it's essentially covering the announcement about the film, certain production details of the film, interviews with Fellini, and his discussion about what he was considering about the film, and his treatment of music, Tchaikovsky, Rossini, Bellini, and others, and Schubert. And he's also talking about how he focuses in on the importance of the face and the visage, and how it was very important for him to cast his film not with anyone that was a very famous celebrity, cinema celebrity, but he wanted to have a cast that one, as viewers, could identify with and could associate with this kind of historical-based drama. And so I think this is very clearly establishing something which I think has been very clear throughout an examination of Fellini's filmography. That is, he is so focused on the importance of the face, and he recognizes every single detail in the frame, which is an amazing thing for a filmmaker of his stature. And also this is showing us his attention to detail. There's a wonderful episode that's recounted about Fellini's direction regarding a specific armchair that's used by one of the characters in one of the scenes. And so there is this armchair discussion, which is such a great exemplary episode about Fellini's filmmaking nature. So that's something, another great example of why this documentary is worth checking out. And also there are other comments that are made about the showing of the film at Venice. Also, we see Fellini in Rimini at the Grand Hotel, which is also very important. And also we get a little bit of Fellini and his comments about TV, which is very funny. And also stay tuned for the what happens during the end credits, which is also very interesting. So this is I think all in all, a wonderful type of documentary to have. And it has a very playful element to it when we see Fellini being interviewed, but also it gives us a lot of insight into his thinking about the film and his filmmaking philosophy and approach and perspective in the context of the film La Nave Va, or And the Ship Sails On. So this is really worth checking out. Again, it's 51 minutes from 1983. That is it as far as the supplements go for this disc. It might seem, therefore, that this is maybe a minor Fellini film from the early 1980s, so in the latter part of his career. However, I do want to emphasize, for anyone who has not seen the film, that it is a wonderful example of Fellini's cinema, not just 80s cinema, but Fellini cinema overall, for the reasons that I tried to suggest earlier in terms of how it's related to many of his other works. It also has a life of its own. It's very touching in a lot of places. It's very funny in a lot of places. And it also has this warmth and welcoming feel to it, while always being this Fellini-esque carnival celebration of humanity that all his films are, including this one, which is And the Ship Sails On. Okay, my friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.